All right, we're going to get going. So everybody, welcome. Thanks for being here. I know a lot of you, this is your first time here, so thanks very much. I'm glad you're here. Really exciting alumni speaker series tonight. Two COLA alum, which I always like to showcase that entrepreneurship and innovation comes from everywhere and every corner. So I know some of you are COLA students, so this will connect with you as well. Couple of housekeeping, as always. This is our last eCenter sort of official event. There's a couple more I2 passport components, but this is the last one of the semester, so it's been a great semester. I can tell you we've already started planning the fall semester, so for those of you that are not graduating, stay tuned for that. We also are going to announce we just got 3 new programs we're going to launch. One's going to be for junior, senior that we're piloting in the spring. More to come on that. It's called the Corporate Innovation Lab, where it's going to be very similar to an Atkins and Rhines, where it'll be a 2-credit component, and you'll be working with an innovation team at a corporation and doing that. So more information on that coming. That will be a pilot in the spring, so basically next January. In the fall, we're going to be launching, we haven't even done the press release yet, but it's a sales program for entrepreneurs and startups. So one of the gaps we've seen is that even successful ideas and alums, young alums and students who've launched companies, the sales process is hard, right? Sales is hard anyway. So it's going to be a basically semester-long sales training program. Added to that is if you complete that and you're working on a startup, that will qualify you to apply for up to $50,000 in non-recourse loans. So basically it's a vehicle to be able to finance your startup. So much more to come on that for those of you that are working on ideas, so I know you are, but it can be really, really exciting. So more on that. I'd like to thank Heather. Jen's not here, so obviously the team helps us every day. We have amazing student ambassadors and interns, so couldn't be here without you guys, so thank you very much. So tonight, I've known Nancy for 20-some years. Actually, is my neighbor, amazing entrepreneur, and she's going to share her story first. And then from Boston is Tito Jackson, who's going to share his equally amazing story and the paths that they took to get there. It's going to be fascinating. So each alum's going to talk about their story. We'll do a little Q&A, and then we'll swap. So we're starting with Nancy, and then we'll go to Tito, and then we'll open it up at the end if there's some time left over. So think about questions as you go. So, and raffles. Thank you. Heather just gave me the look. At the end, you guys all got raffle tickets. If you didn't, get them before we do the raffle. It's 2 $25 certificates, several certificates to Hop and Grind. To thank you additionally for being here. So with that, I'll leave it to Nancy. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, this is very exciting for me because I have some neighbors and friends in the crowd, which you would think I might have paid them to come so that they would support me and smile in the second row. I'm really humbled to tell this story because I wasn't as smart as you guys are right now in college and thinking about being an entrepreneur. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to go into business. My dad was in business. So I knew that would be my course, but it never occurred to me that I would own a business. And so let me share with you how I got there, because I think you'll all feel really good about yourselves as a result. So I graduated a long, long time ago, and so long ago that that logo didn't exist at that time, but it was 40 years ago, really 41 years ago. It was an amazing experience at UNH. I had a blast. My only big claim to fame in terms of leadership is that I was president of Chi O. Chrissy was in my sorority too. And I learned a lot being in a sorority. And one of my favorite life lessons is that when one night I was asleep and someone came and banged on my door and said, "Nancy, somebody just threw up in the living room." And I said, "Well, that's a shame." And they said, "Well, you're the president." It's like, oh, shoot. So I cleaned up the throw up. Too bad. So my journey, again, had no intent about being a business owner. So my dad was a salesman, kind of grew up in that mentality, and so I knew that I wanted to go into sales. So my first job was being a commercial insurance broker. That was horrible. I don't suggest it, because really what you're selling is disaster. You're selling insurance against property damage or death or destruction. And it's not the most positive phone call people want to take. So I quickly learned that that was not the right path for me. So then I kept in sales, and I had a ball. I was a female in the late 80s, and it was unusual for women to be in sales in that role, and especially in the role that I was in. And so in the industry I was in. And I just had a blast and kept getting more and more territory and taking more and more on, and helped grow a business from 6 million to 30 million and helped them grow globally. We opened an office in the Netherlands, and I was a mom by then. I had two young girls. One was 5 and one was 1. And I realized at that time that I better start traveling and be home and be a mom. So really it was kind of an epiphany for me about what could I do and still be in sales and not travel so much. And so I had a prior sales job in technology, and a crazy entrepreneur who started that business is a gentleman named Mickey Dude, believe it or not. And picture Rod Stewart, that's what he looks like, long hair and kind of a hippie. Well, he started a business called Vision Events, and he was in the high-tech industry for a long time. And what happens in high-tech is there's so much money that's put into research and development to come up with new products and new releases. They have to sell them really fast because you've got to be on to the next edition or version within 12 to 18 months. And so he was the vice president of sales and marketing for NCR, probably heard of that company, and used to go to big trade shows where they would spend $1 million on a trade show booth. And it occurred to him that all these people, you're kind of hoping the right person would come by and that you weren't busy talking to your coworker or to someone else. And he said there has to be a better way to do this. And so he founded a company called Vision Events, and the notion was to have very small, intimate events, but with the right people, the top buying executives by industry. And for his industry, it was in high tech. So he brought in all the top buying executives who would be interested in technology, and he paid their way. He paid their flight, he paid their hotel, he paid their meals. All they had to do was come. And you would think that would be easy because you would go to beautiful venues, the Ritz-Carlton in Laguna Niguel, the Beverly Wilshire, just spectacular hotels. But people's time is important to them. And people of that caliber, when they're senior level executives, they don't really need somebody to fly them somewhere great. They can do that on their own. So what he learned is that you had to build for them something they couldn't do for themselves or they wouldn't do for themselves. So his whole premise was, if you find innovation and you can make the promise that I'm going to deliver for you innovation that you're interested in a very efficient manner, along with a peer group who you can learn from and trade best practices and all, what a fabulous opportunity. People didn't have the time to do it themselves, and you take all the work out of that for them. So that became the value proposition. So I went to work for Mickey, and I was responsible for international recruiting. So getting buying executives to come from all over Europe to fly to Beverly Hills, which is a long way to fly, with this promise that we're going to deliver for you new ideas that you can buy and sell and make more money, but we're going to find them for you and introduce you to the principals of those companies. And when I saw that idea in person for the very first time, I was at the Ritz-Carlton in Laguna Niguel looking out over the Pacific Ocean. And I said, if I ever had that opportunity where all my potential customers were under one roof and I got to spend 3 days with them, that's like a winning proposition. You're landlocked. You're right with all these most important potential buyers. And you could talk to them in the lobby. You could talk to them at the bar. You could talk to them in the elevator bank. So my story to tell you is this was not my idea. This is Mickey Dude's idea that allowed us to start Connecting Point. So when I saw that, I said, boy, if I had had that back in my last business, where I was VP of Sales and Marketing for a company outside of Boston that made store fixtures. So kind of everything from checkouts to lighting to kind of everything in a retail store. I said, if I ever had that where Walmart would be in the same hotel with me, and Home Depot and Lowe's and Walgreens and Verizon, all those major retailers would be in that same hotel, I could sell a lot of stuff. So I worked for Mickey for a few years. I worked with Dave Best. He's in the second row. RJ Lincoln, he was there too. We worked for this great company. Mickey ended up selling his business to a venture capital company, and that venture capital company in turn sold his business to a major market research company called Gartner. And that business kind of dissolved after some time. So all of us really learned what would happen potentially when you buy and sell a company, because we got to work for a company that got sold and then repurposed and all. So it was very interesting. My career allowed me to grow my skill set. Really, we're talking about a long time, 19 and for 23 years. I learned sales, I learned marketing, I learned product development. I learned how to acquire customers, how to sell. And then I just learned general management. I had to do a budget, so I learned all of those skills along the way. And one of the things I want to share with you that I didn't realize, but every experience I had in business was a great learning opportunity. And I learned some of the best things from the worst bosses. Mickey Dude had a terrible temper, and he used to call us to his house for meetings. And I'd go for my review, and we'd sit in his living room. And one time he threw a chair at me. And I thought, wow, that's something I'll never do. And you learn from every experience you have. So embrace even the bad experiences, because take it away for yourself to consider what kind of boss you want to be one day, what kind of environment you want to work for, what kind of culture you want to be a part of. Each one was a learning experience for me. So we worked at this great vision events business. We all saw the value proposition. The business grew. And then when it was acquired by Gartner, I just didn't do very well with their senior leadership and didn't think that would be a place for me to stay. So I left the company and I started doing some product development consulting back in that retail fixture business. And I started talking to people and they said, oh, we hate these trade shows we go to and they're expensive and we don't get a good ROI. And I thought, I wonder if we take Mickey Dude's idea and apply it to that industry. And so I kept talking to people and people got excited about it. And that's the other lesson I learned, is you really have to test your theory. You have to talk to people and share it and be open to ideas. And the business idea changed a lot through that process. So really encourage you to be open to that. And the other thing that allowed us to start a business is that I worked with this amazing gal named Kim Hawk, and she was and is completely 180 degrees different than I am. She's the operations person, tactician. She executes more in a day than I could even consider. And the next business lesson that to share with you is find and surround yourself with great people, but surround yourself with people that complement your skills. Because if it was RJ and I that started the business, we might not be here today. We could sell a lot, but I'm not sure we could execute. So founding the business, we really said, maybe we could start our own business. Maybe we could start a business that could treat people the way we wanted to treat people, that could have a culture that we wanted to have, that could have benefits that we think are the best benefits in the world. And so over my garage, we started this business with this kind of hope and prayer that it would work. We didn't go out and get fancy office space. We just used the tables or offices, and the pool table was where we would put our literature. In those days, you sent paper flyers out and all that stuff. I mean, that's what we did. And to do it, we had to fund it. And so we had the opportunity when Mickey first sold the company, sold it to a venture capital company in Boston. And that person who ran the business for a few years stayed a friend of ours. And so I went to him and said, what do you think? Would you be interested in helping us start this business? And so we looked at financial modeling, and he put in a lot of money and I put in kind of all my life savings and thought, well, we'll give it a shot. And that's what we did. So I started thinking about how we did it. And all of these things happened kind of concurrently. So the business premise I shared with you was maybe we could do this same idea of a new event model rather than a traditional trade show. Do something where you bring these senior leaders in for this specific market. I had to find the right people to make it work. We had to get funding. I had to have a vision for where this would go long term. And one of the things I learned along the way is you have to have milestones. And we had to know that we were going to be able to make it work and make it happen. So we set certain milestones in order to make this work. And then we had to have a fallback strategy. And my fallback strategy is I had known how to waitress my whole life, and I thought, well, at least I could be a waitress. So that was my fallback strategy. My husband didn't like that strategy, but it was effective, I thought. So the other thing that we learned along the way is naming a company is really hard. Believe it or not, it was one of the hardest things we did, because you have to have a URL, you have to be able to consider trademarks, it's got to be accepted by the state. And so there was a lot to it. I came up with this idea. I thought, wouldn't it be cool? We have all these great executives. Let's call it Big Fish. And our investors said, no, we're not going to have a company called Big Fish. So we landed with Connecting Point Marketing Group. It's okay. It's now really called Connecting Point. It's not really a marketing group. We had to think about the business structure. And you all know or are learning there are things that are called LLCs. There's S Corps. There's C Corps. And there's a lot of implication to all of those decisions that I would never have known had it not been for our investor who helped us. And the biggest thing he told me right off the bat is go and find a great lawyer and go find a great accountant. And they needed to learn the business, because one of the things that I learned as an event company, when you hold events in different states, you have to pay taxes based on the revenue in that state. And if you're a shareholder or you're an investor, and if you're an S Corp, then that flows through and you have to pay taxes in those states as well. So there are all these implications that I would never have had any idea about that I learned. And I hired a great lawyer and a great accountant that really helped us start the business. And we were an S Corp. We got the funding and we figured out that we could survive on the funding for 2 years. And so that allowed us to start. I didn't take a salary for the first 3 years, but other people did, and that was part of the business model. We had to figure out how long we could sustain ourselves and grow into a real business. And then again, always, as I mentioned, you just always have to test your business theory and learn and tweak from it too, which we did along the way. So this is Connecting Point. There is a video, but you don't really need to see it. Connecting Point is based in Rye, New Hampshire, so just down the road. We have always an entrepreneurship intern every fall that works at Connecting Point. So that's been a huge opportunity for our company and great to meet lots of neat people like you. And the company started with one event. We kind of thought that would be it. And this is another thing I learned, is that we didn't have a strategic plan when we started, which is kind of against all the things that you're learning, is that you really should have a business plan and an idea. Our business plan was, let's have a great lifestyle business that we could do something really cool, survive, make a good income, and that would be that. But what happened is that the company grew because our customers demanded it. They saw what we did in one market, in the retail market, and then someone said, you should do this in the restaurant industry. We were like, ooh, really? More work? Okay. So we started in the restaurant industry, and then the people in the hospitality market, they were like, oh my gosh, hotel chains would love this. There's nothing like this in the hotel market. So we got into the hotel market. And then one of the ideas that we always had was keep an event small enough so it could be under one roof. And they weren't in convention centers, which was kind of a differentiator. So to find nice hotels that could keep everyone under one roof, you couldn't grow the events too big with too many people either. So the events are about kind of top out at about 600 people. And so we started pulling apart events. And today the company has 13 events, and they launch typically one new event a year now on average, which is really exciting. And it really has happened based on customer demand. So the business model, just to show you some pictures, the idea of this is rather than stand in a trade show booth, if you've ever walked into, even when you go to, what's it called when you first go to school, and up at the MUB, and they have different tabletops set up where you can join. Yeah. Well, instead of that, where you just wander around and you kind of hope to talk to someone, the idea of this is that we would put together a small group, which you see in the top left picture, and it kind of looks like a boardroom set up U-shaped. And we would put a group of buying executives from all different types of retailers. So it might be Walmart and Home Depot and Walgreens and Bed Bath & Beyond. All these different executives from different chains sitting around that boardroom table. And you would be presenting in this boardroom table because it was the perfect group for you based on who you wanted to do business with. So we had this great technology that would help us to set that up. And you would have their private audience for 20 minutes to tell them your story. Pretty powerful opportunity to get your story pitched to the right people. And then top right, those are one-on-one appointments. So then if you want to sit down and talk pricing with Home Depot, you wouldn't bring that up maybe in front of Lowe's. So you'd want to do that kind of stuff one-on-one. We would always try to find great, inspiring speaker. This is a gentleman named Roy Spence. He wrote a book about having purpose. That's a wonderful book. And we always had keynotes or speakers that would just help all of us learn or find inspiration. And then we had great social events. And the other thing that happens typically at a trade show is everybody goes and then they go home, or they go out with their best supplier for a fancy dinner or something like that. And our idea was, wouldn't it be cool if everyone just stayed together the whole time? Because that's more business interaction opportunity. So the social events were a blast. I mean, we did everything from K1 race car driving to, I don't know, crazy things. So really fun. So then probably year 5, I think it was, we decided we should have a mission statement. So again, we kind of did things backwards. We learned as we went. But together as a team, we created this mission statement: deliver unique opportunities to connect and inspire business leaders. And our vision statement was passionate people. It was our team that were inspiring growth. And then the business tagline was where business gets done. We had great growth as a company from 2005 up to, this is a slide up to 2018. So again, significant, consistent growth. And again, customer-led, the demand. We realized early on that what we were doing, because we created a custom schedule for each participant of 500 people that come to an event, that we really needed good technology. So in the early days, we had Post-it notes, and that didn't scale very well. So we invested, and we found a great, unbelievable local software developer in Concord, and he developed this software for us that started out more as an administrative tool and then became customer facing. And then there's a company called Pixel Media, right on P's, you might know, and they developed this mobile app for us. It's 100% adoption. Everyone uses the mobile app at the events, and it's slick and cool and fun too. So again, we had great margin, we had great growth, and I would say one of the other business learnings that's really important to think about is cash flow, because we weren't profitable for 6 years as a company. But we could stay in existence because we had great cash flow and great terms. So we had everyone pay typically 6 months. They paid in advance, and then they paid in full 3 months before an event. So we had all the money in-house before we had to pay the people to put on the events. The other thing that we found really fun and inspiring about having our own business is that we could decide what the culture would be. And we were really tough on anyone who interviewed with the company. Everyone for probably the first 12 years had to interview with the whole company, every person. And the final interview was you had to present why we should hire you at Connecting Point. So it was fairly rigorous and great stories as a result. But as a result, we really, we assembled a world-class team. And I, again, encourage you to always find the best people that will help you to learn, that will push you, that will complement your skills, and that will help really build your business. So we had found great talent, and together we decided to write what our values would be. We wanted to have internal values. How are we going to treat each other? What was the culture going to be like inside the business? And then we would have external values as well. So I would say the most important internal value that really became kind of really directional for everyone was to assume good intent. We're a really lean team. We're in a stressful environment. Believe it or not, event planning is like the third most stressful profession next to firefighting or something crazy like that. But when you're moving fast and you have a lot on your mind and you're trying to do your job, sometimes you run over someone else in what they're trying to do. So one of the things that really was helpful was to create a language with things like assume a good intent. So if someone you thought was not assuming good intent, you could say to them, that doesn't really seem like it's coming from a place of good intent. And it became a language that helped us to reward and to inspire and to really help grow the business. So we review that, and we got in trouble once in a while. We got off kilter. We were not living those values. And so we would have big company meetings and talk about it. And should we rewrite the values? Is this still who we can be? Can we still be this company with 25 employees when we had 7 when we wrote them? So we would look to those again. So I think you can probably read them. Be respectful of one another, communicate honestly and resolve conflict, add value every day, encourage and support new ideas, ask for and offer to help, prioritize life balance with work, have some fun, keep your sense of humor, and always care. And then externally, because we're a very customer-facing business, it was really critical that we all got on the same page. And so the idea was that we had to ensure that we were all committed to our partners and our customers' success. Strive to deliver excellence and delight. We tried to surprise people. We tried to set a good bar, but then they'd come to the events and they would leave kind of blown away. That was always the goal. Foster relationships that are mutually beneficial. Make a difference. We early on decided to partner with a Backpack for Kids program. And so the idea was that we partnered with a food bank in each of the cities that we held events. And the food bank always, all of them have a Backpack for Kids program, which offers backpacks to kids with food insecurity on a Friday so that they stuff it with food so the child and their family will have food on the weekend. So we did that, and one person you could donate $25 would buy one backpack, and then Connecting Point matched dollar for dollar each backpack. And so over the years, it's, I think, $1.2 million that we've donated to Backpack for Kids around the country. Continually grow, improve, be open to that and to learn, and then to care as well externally. And then we did this really fun thing that I also encourage, was called Forced Family Fun, that I named. But the idea was that you had to have some fun in the company because we were going pedal to the ground and we worked hard. But the idea was that 3 times a year, we would go do something fun. So those are some pictures. That's a Smutty Nose Brewery. That was going apple picking. We played cornhole on the Isle of Shoals. We went kayaking. We did that indoor parachuting. And it's just amazing how important that is to build camaraderie and to have some fun and lift your head from the work once in a while. So then selling the company. So our investor was very silent, never involved in the business at all. I met with him once a year and just went over the numbers, and he would always say to me, what's the end game? And we didn't really know what the end game was. And so we talked a little bit about that and decided that probably should start looking at selling the company in 2016. I wanted to stay on with the company to make sure it got to be in a good home. And so we found an investment banker and went with a company that had experience in our industry and also experience selling the kind of size company that we are. Because the other thing you learn when you sell your company is that you have to have a certain level of EBITDA, your earnings before tax and depreciation, to make you valuable. And we were still a little company by those terms. And so we went to market, which is what is called, you put something out called a SIM, a confidential information memorandum, and you pitch your story to lots of interested buyers. They put in a letter of intent if they're interested in buying your company, and then you get to meet with them. And the real key was to try to find the right buyer. We decided to look for a financial buyer rather than a strategic buyer. We were a trade event company. We didn't want to be sold to a trade show company because we had seen what Gartner did to vision events and we didn't want to go that route. So we were sold in 2016 to a financial investment group out of Los Angeles called Corridor Capital. And 3 months later, I got a phone call and someone said, we want to buy your company. And I said, oh, shoot, we already sold. No can do. They said, well, that's right. Well, who do we have to buy it from then? So I told them it was Corridor Capital, LA, gave them the name of the people. And the investment group said, we're going to keep the company for 3 to 5 years, which is typical for a financial group. And they called again, and then they went out and saw them. And then within 6 months, 3 other trade show companies contacted me and said, we want to buy your company. It was just like there was, I don't know, something on the street or... So anyway, I said to them, if I owned the company, I would look to sell it now because there's obviously this interest and you never know what will happen next year. And so they put the company on the market and sold the company to the largest trade show company in the United States, who saw this event business as being a great complement to traditional trade shows. We actually put one of their shows out of business with our little baby event. And so I think their idea was, let's buy the competition a little bit too. But we got to pick who bought the company. Even though Corridor owned the company, they wanted to make sure that we thought the company was in good hands. And so we got to really spend time and meet and learn the management there and all. And that was helpful. And we got to choose the buyer. So it's been a good place for Connecting Point. They're owned by a company called Emerald X. They're based in Manhattan. And it's been a good company. The other lesson I learned is that we really like the CEO and CFO, who was part of the deal making. And neither one of them are there anymore. And I just retired in August, and I worked for 5 different CEOs during my 5 years there. So you can't count on selling because you like the personality. So my top other entrepreneurship lessons: be open to fail, get great advisors, assemble the best team, world-class team, work hard, test and tweak your business theory, be mindful of good cash flow, define and demonstrate your values, treat your team like you would like to be treated, be a leader, and seek some balance in your life too. Life lessons: people are people. One of the biggest thing I realized early on is that everyone is just a human being. And so be authentic with people and you'll get to know them. Be kind, be authentic and consistent is a really important thing as a business leader. Inspire people by playing to their strengths. Not everyone needs to be good at everything. And most importantly, you can change people's lives by how you treat them. Thank you. All the best in your journey. Thanks.
So while it's fresh, we'll do a little Q&A right now before we swap over to Tito. Any questions for Nancy?
Reed.
Yeah, thank you for presenting, obviously. I know you mentioned earlier that your father was in sales and that kind of drove you a little bit towards that. Was there anyone else along your journey that was kind of a mentor for you that kind of showed you the ropes a little bit?
Probably not growing up. It was really my dad. But then when I got into business, I had a lot of mentors. Mickey Dude was a great mentor to me, even though he did things that I didn't always agree with. But I always had mentors along the way. It was amazing. And they came in lots of different walks and forms, Thank you.
In a company or in size that Connecting Point is or was when you were in it, especially, how important to you is trust in that small amount of people?
Pretty important. Yeah, really important. I think, especially when you're a lean group, and in this business, the business wouldn't have been successful if everyone didn't do their job. So it wasn't just the revenue that was important from sales. It wasn't just the audience acquisition people who were responsible for delivering the audience. It wasn't just the hotel menus, but all of that together is what made that experience. And so I think the hard part is there was always conflict. There's the budget versus, we want shrimp cocktail, you can't have shrimp cocktail. There's always that kind of internal conflict. But as long as we were grounded in our values, which is we were trying to create an experience that would knock people's socks off, that's kind of what we tried to get back to and try to see each other's point of view and compromise to what we landed with. But trust is important. It's a great question. It's an interesting question.
Talk about SIMS. I forget what it stands for, but...
Confidential Informational Memorandum.
Okay.
So that's what someone will put together that will help you market your company. And
do you have any tips for that, or particularly structuring a presentation or something like that?
there are great templates out in the market. I think that was the biggest strength of hiring an investment banker, is they put it together. And it's interesting when you tell an external party about your business and how they perceive it, and they're trying to sell the business for you. So they spend a great deal of time kind of massaging the story. So for instance, in 2009, we didn't have an event because it was a technology event, and there was a huge technology bubble burst on Wall Street in 2009, and we just decided we couldn't hold that event. And so instead of telling that story like that, the investment banker's like, no. We waited because there was a pause in the market, and then look at the growth in 2010, where I would have been like, oh, it was dreadful. So they really helped put that together and made it a much better story than we would have said ourselves. And they learn too on what you're looking for, what your goals are and the kind of company that you want to be a part of. So that culture slide was a part of our sim, because that was valuable to the team, and we obviously wanted to keep the team in place. So we wanted to resonate with a potential buyer that would recognize and pay something for that value of the culture, for instance.
So you mentioned, like, when you sold the company for the second time, you really liked the CEO, and then it changed CEO very quickly. And so that's not like, it didn't end up being like the best metric for why to sell the company. Do you have any other ideas on like what to look for on the flip side to like getting hired into a company, not just because you like the person to be working with, not in the future, or on the perspective where the side where you're on, like selling the company, what other characteristics to look for besides the person that you like at that company?
Yeah, it's a great question and a great learning that we had too. I think you have to really see where you fit in an organization, and that you see strategically that you're adding value to mission and the overall company play. And one of my worries when we lost that first CEO was that he recognized that we were very different than the rest of the business. And that's why they bought us, to be complementary. But the fear was that the new CEO would say, off with their heads, we don't like that. We like everyone to be the same because it's easier to run things that were the same. So I think really recognizing where the company is going, what the foundation of the company is, what the values of the company are, what their growth strategy is, and make sure that you align with that. And that's more important than the people. I do have to tell you, one of the things that's fun about being a business owner and selling your business is I never had a boss. And I missed that. I missed someone to commiserate with or to seek guidance from. And my investor helped a bit, but he wasn't that that involved in the day-to-day. So I loved having a boss. So I enjoyed every one of the 5 CEOs and learned something different from each of them. So that was good.
So you spoke about being one of the first or only women in your sales career, and then being as a woman entrepreneur. You talk about the drawbacks to that and the benefits of that as you have been successful.
That's a great question. I never really thought that you should speak to your gender, or that gender should be a differentiator. And I never recognized that until I was selling things that were mostly in a male-dominated field. And then I looked around and there were like all these men in the waiting room and me. And then I realized, well, that's kind of good, because then maybe that's the reason I got the appointment. Maybe they're sick of all these men, and so they would give me an appointment. So that worked well. As an entrepreneur, I think it was kind of novel. And so I felt like I got a lot of help, that people wanted to help us be successful. And I think it's true. And I think you work harder perhaps because you're committed to being successful too. So I think that that made an effect. But I didn't see it as a hindrance, and I didn't see it as a value, really.
All right, so we'll have some open time at the end for Q&A for both. So we'll swap over for Tito to go, and then
So let's give it up one more time for Nancy. So I'm sitting here taking notes because I actually have a startup, right? So I'm sitting here learning from Nancy. I'm taking down my LeBron poster, putting up my Nancy Splaine poster because she sold the company twice. Right? You guys heard that, right? It's like, okay, cool. We're gonna sell it again. After it had, no, we sold it that one time, but we want you to come back and sell it again. So I just want to give you the propers. I do want to disagree with her just on that last point. You worked harder, you showed up, and you busted your butt in ways that guys don't have to. And I know that because I'm a dude. And so I just want to, give you your props. And in particular, at the time that you were doing it, there were many hindrances. And I know that you were tunnel. You looked, through the tunnel, but you went through a whole lot. And I just want to give you props for the success. And the other piece is the diverse group of people. The picture was outstanding to me too, when I was looking at a picture of a New Hampshire company, and it didn't look quite like New Hampshire, and that's also a really important thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tito Jackson, and I am a 1999 graduate of the University of New Hampshire. I got out for good behavior. I was here for 5.5. And then my dean walked up to me one day, right in front of T Hall, and he handed me a piece of paper. And I said, Dean Kirkpatrick, how you doing, man? He said, Tito, I've been looking for you. Here goes something for you. He said, I said, what's that? He said, it's called an intent to graduate form. And I want to see it on my desk. I was going for my 4th minor. So he said, you have to leave. But I'm going to start a little bit before my business, because my path is not linear at all. So I was born, actually my birthday was Monday. So I'm really, really happy. I'm happy to have made it through that. And I just turned 47. I was born in 1975. And some really important things have happened to me recently, so I really want to start there. So I was born after 7 rainy days on April 11th, 1975. I tell my parents that after all of that rain, the universe opened up and the sun shone down, and then there was little baby Tito, which was the sunshine of your life. That was actually not quite the case in my situation. I was in a hospital for 2 months, and not because I was sick, but because I was born to a 13-year-old who was assaulted. And in those 2 months, I was in foster care and waiting to be adopted. And 2 months in, an amazing thing happened to me. I was adopted by my mom, Rosa Jackson, and my dad, Herbert Jackson. And I lived my life with the concept of the word grace. And grace is not given to someone because they deserve it or because they're owed it. It's really the concept of helping someone because they need help. And we live in there's Ukraine, there's all kind of stuff going, Haiti, there's stuff going on. And I submit to you that we need to live in a world where there's more grace. And I was adopted into a family that already had 4 kids. My parents had 4 kids biologically. I remind them that unlike them, I was chosen. They just had them. You just got what you got in that situation. And then they adopted 3 more, and I was like, listen, I'll hook you all up with this adoption thing, man. They really liked it. And my youngest sister reminds me that the reason why they kept on adopting is because they wanted better, is what she tells me, right? And so from there, I actually grew up at a really tough time in the city of Boston. I got an amazing educational opportunity. I was in a program called the METCO program, which is a busing program where Black and Latino students get bused to suburban communities outside the city of Boston. So I had an amazing opportunity to go to school in Brookline. I went to school with Theo Epstein. His twin brother, Paul Epstein, text me. I'm not that cool with Theo, but Paul Epstein, his twin, texted me on Monday. I went to school with Sam Kennedy, who's the president of the Red Sox. So some really cool people went through our schools. And I went through a amazing educational opportunity in a really diverse setting. So my high school graduating class of 450 people, we had people from 65 different countries. This is a really awesome experience. And when I wanted to go to college, I wanted to go to a historically Black college, an HBCU. And the reason why I wanted to go was because I had not been in my honors level classes and the advanced classes in Brookline. There were no other Black students. And I wanted to be challenged in that environment. Also, I wanted to go to Morehouse College because that's where Martin Luther King went. And anyone know how old Martin Luther King was when he graduated high school? Anybody know? Anybody want to guess? It's not 18, right? Because that would have been like kind of, yeah. Anybody want to guess? 15. He was 15, right? So Martin Luther King was 15. So I'm like, damn, I'm 3 years behind, right? So let me get my stuff going. So I sent out the application. I got in. Actually, I got my UNH stuff back, got a bunch of schools back. I'm so happy to get into Morehouse College, which is all-male, historically Black college and university. And, you get your admissions letter, which you're really happy about. And then there's another letter that comes that you may or may not be happy about. It's called your financial aid package. And it showed me that University of New Hampshire wanted me, and Morehouse did not. Morehouse gave me a $1,500 financial aid package. And again, I told you I'm one of 8, right? So that wasn't gonna fly. And I say it to everybody today, if I had to go back and do it again, even if it didn't have the dough, I would definitely go back and go to University of New Hampshire. Because this institution truly enriched, challenged, and changed my life. So I came here in 1993. The MUB was in all that left side where y'all have like the dining hall where y'all get fingerprinted and stuff in there and all that stuff. None of that stuff was there. The kind of gables-like things that are downtown, which I really wish I had because we had to. I lived in Woodside. None of that was there. So I got on campus, and I don't know how many of y'all have embarrassing parents. Any of y'all? Okay, cool. I just want to let you know. I didn't want to be the only one to have embarrassing parents. So I got here, and my mom and dad brought me in. I lived in Lord Hall. It was all male, and it smelled so bad at the time. Whew, we were very happy when it went co-ed. It smelled much better. But we got there the first day, and again, my embarrassing parents, my mom and dad brought up all of my clothing, and we started putting stuff away, and I get to my underwear drawer, and I had an epiphany about what my mom was thinking. My mom did not think I was going to college. She thought that I was going to camp because she wrote my name on every article of clothing, my socks, shirts, underwear, all of that stuff. So that was a little bit embarrassing. And then my parents, right before they left, my mom embarrassed me even more. So this, again, all male dorm, all of this testosterone just flowing, just dudeness all up in there. And my mom, she had given me a granola bar a little bit earlier, a little snack. And I had a little granola right here. And I was down the hall, just doing the dudeness, male mating ritual thing going on. How does your mom remove something that's on your face in front of your friends? So my mom, so she just licked, so embarrassed me in front of all of my friends. And then it got real at UNH. We actually used to, I don't believe they do this anymore, but we had freshman orientation. They didn't call it first year at the time. And we all went to the field house. And actually one of the reasons why also I went to UNH, so I thought it was really cool coming from Boston, is when you first came here, they brought you past like the cows and the horses and stuff. And as someone from the city of Boston, that was like the coolest thing to see like a real cow and a real horse. But so my whole class, all 3,000 students were going to the first year orientation at the field house. And when you're first year, you're kind of cool. You're like walking a little slow, whatever, trying to be cool. And back then I was talking to somebody and I turned around and my stomach sunk because I didn't see another black face other than the dude who was standing next to me, who's still my best friend, and who were opening a business in New Jersey at a couple of butts. I didn't see another black face. So we had 3,000 students there. And at that time, in 1993, the University of New Hampshire had about 13,000 students, and there were 54 black students. So I'm gonna just pause there for a second, and I would submit to you that we all are gonna walk into that room someday and not feel necessarily safe, not feel like we belong, and have that fear. And I know we've all done that, regardless of our race, gender, sexual orientation, or the like. And I guess the lesson that I would punctuate right there is that the cavalry is not coming. All of the leaders, all of the doers, all the people that we need to change the world, change business, environment, all of those people are in this room right here. Nobody's coming to save us but us. And as the skinny little black kid, because the brother was skinny at the time, that day really helped shape my experience here. And actually, I go back to that as one of the motivations for success in my whole life. We got together and we formed an organization called the Black Student Union. It was the largest name that we could come up with for 7 people. And the crazy thing is, we actually put together a list of demands, right? This doesn't work so well in work, so don't tell people, don't go to work tomorrow and say that Tito told you that I want to demand that but we put together a list of demands. We wanted more non-athlete students of color. We wanted more women of color, because it was a 3-to-1 ratio, because most of the folks here were athletes. We wanted an Office of Multicultural Student Affairs that was functioning. It was a phone on the desk of someone in the administration. And we wanted a pre-orientation for students of color. And it's a dude here, his name was Dale Nitschke, that was the president at the time, and we got 4,000, I went around, and all of us, all 7 of us, went around, and we got 4,000 signatures. So we got about a third of the population. That signature gathering, I'll let you know, helped me later on when I ran for office, because I wasn't shy to do that. And one of the other things I would say in life is sometimes we ask for too little, and we get it. And in this case, we asked for all of those things that we wanted, and we got all of them. We have the Connect program, which is now over 20 years old. That was student run and student led. That didn't exist before. We have an Office of Multicultural Student Affairs. I don't believe that's what it's called. It's called something else now. But we also have a great deal of recruitment that has happened. And it was young people, just like yourself, who innovated and were entrepreneurs that actually made that change and that shift. So that's the one other piece I want to say to you. Life is not practice. It's not practice. Martin Luther King, by the way, I just turned 47. Anyone know what age he lived to? Anyone want to guess?
47.
What's that?
47.
47? No, he actually lived to 39. So all the stuff that he did was really from 24 to 39. All of it happened in 15 years. And by the way, when we look at desegregation, women getting the right to vote, guys, that was young folks, people who were younger than you, who actually made that happen. And so I just bring y'all there also, and I have to share a failure with you in that I, in my sophomore year at University of New Hampshire, had some tough things happening. My best friend got shot and killed at Morehouse, the school I wanted to go to. And I got really depressed. And I ended up failing out of school here. Really tough time for me. And I went back home and I got a job at a bank called Shawmut Bank. I was getting taken over by Fleet, and I was driving all the way out to Natick, which is from Boston, like 30, 40 minutes. And since I was going all the way out there, I ended up getting another job at a place called Leechmere. And only the older people in here will remember that. It's kind of like a Best Buy, but they also sold lawnmowers. A weird thing. And so I used to go there, go to work, and I was the dude who brought your TVs to your car, because I was a big, strong brother. But then I would tell my boss that he had wasted my beauty because I was in a warehouse, and I was a handsome dude, and I should be out on the floor. I told him that enough that one day he actually said, hey, put on a nice shirt when you come in. We're gonna put you on the floor. So I thought I was gonna be like selling TVs, something cool like that. My first sales job was the credit card salesperson. You know that person, right? You know that annoying person in the store? And the thing for me was he actually said, hey, if you get 20 applications today that are approved, you get $100. And we made $5 an hour. He said, you'll make $7 an hour. And you also, you'll have some other bonuses or whatever. So at the end of the first day, he said, hey, Tito, how'd you do? I was like, oh, I got 28. And he's like, well, the guy before you, I'm gonna move him because he's only ever got 8. And interestingly, also, what ended up happening was, so I made $200 plus that $100, and then plus whatever I made. One of the things that also happened, and I think Nancy kind of spoke to this, how you treat other people and how you are as a mentor to other people can really lift them up. So we were last in the country. And by the way, every single person at the store could do what I did. Right? It wasn't an actual job. And so what ended up happening, people were like, well, Tito making too much damn money. How do you do that? So I ended up training a lot of other folks. And so we went from being last in the country in those credit card applications, and we went to being first, right? And so I would also submit to you, and I feel like I need a new one, and I want to make Nancy mine. You should always have 2 relationships in your life. You should always have a mentor and a mentee at the same time. We should always be lifting as we rise, but we should also be looking to people who've actually done this before. I will go into, so my first job out of college was I was a history major, COLA represent. I wanted to be a teacher, and then they offered me the same amount of money that I was gonna owe in my student loans for my salary, and I was like, yeah, that's probably a sign that I shouldn't do that. So my first job out of college, and I got the job through the MUB at the last job fair. I ended up getting a job working at Johnson & Johnson, a company called Ortho McNeil. It was a pharmaceutical sales job. So I was really, really happy. I got there on the first day. They gave me a car, like a brand new car, right? Which is like, to me, the coolest thing. That the salary thing, I probably should have paid more attention to that, but they gave me a car, they gave me a credit card, they gave me a BlackBerry, which was like an iPhone 15 at the time. Just want to let y'all know. That was like the bomb at the time. And they gave me a computer. And the first thing, and then they gave me this big box. And I was like, hey, what's the box for? They said, oh, you're actually selling antibiotic. So it's Monday, you have a test on Friday on Introduction to Microbiology. And you have to get a 90 or higher. I was a happy 2.7 at the University of New Hampshire. But that's the other component is I think the great part about a liberal arts degree is that you're a lifelong learner and you can make it happen. And I had a 99 average, and I still submit today that I should still have that other point. But the great part about pharmaceutical sales was they actually gave us 6 months of training with full pay, and they taught us how to sell, right? And I want you to know, selling is just not innate, right? One, we all will sell many times, even today. Hey, what are y'all gonna do tonight? What movie are we gonna see, right? Features tell, benefits sell, all those other cool things. So sales is something that you can be trained. All of us can be trained to do, and we must be trained to do. And I would submit to you that the people who earn the most at the companies that I worked at were the best salespeople. Oftentimes, they made even more than the CEO of the company. And so that is a really important trait. So I worked at Johnson & Johnson. I really enjoyed that job. I got recruited, and in our world, what they would do is they would take the specific area that you work in, and other companies know that you have those relationships. So that's one other, your network is your net worth, right? So the relationships that you have, and by the way, I just gotta say this to y'all, by the way, all that stuff online, remember that don't go away. So I'm just gonna have to be real with you. I know y'all have like, hey, Snapchat's gonna keep my stuff. Come on. Your Facebook, your Twitter, that is your digital resume. So I know y'all are having fun, and I know y'all are young, but as someone who ran for elected office, as someone who's in the cannabis industry now, one of the things that they look at in the state of Massachusetts is they go back and look at your Facebook and your Twitter to see if you're even fit to work in our industry. So I just want to put that out there. I won't make anyone, you might want to take it down right now, but I just want to be real with you guys about that component. I moved from Johnson & Johnson onto Eli Lilly. I got to launch a ED drug, which is really fun. You make a lot of money when you launch products. Got more training. And then I had an opportunity to move into the startup arena. Had a friend who started a company in Burlington, Mass. It's called Silverlink Communications. It was a healthcare technology, HIPAA compliant company. I love him to death. Went over to work for him. There's something called like kind of founder fatigue. I don't know if y'all know about that. That's my homeboy. So I had fun there. And I got a check like 5 or 6 years ago, but it was a situation where he kind of held on to a company too long. And I'm really, really happy to hear what Nancy's done, because imagine if Nancy had held on to her company till last year. or the year before, and COVID hit, when there was nothing. So to get the all of the value, but it was amazing to be in a startup space where my voice actually mattered, where if I showed up and showed out, that really, really mattered. Then I had an opportunity to work for government. I helped a guy named Deval Patrick become governor. And after he became governor, I had an opportunity to work and do business development for the state of Massachusetts to recruit IT companies to our state. Fast forward in 2010, I ran for, 2009, I ran for Boston City Council. I caught the bug. And I ran a spirited campaign. I only spent $50,000. That fundraising thing actually is helpful. Getting those signatures, remember those signatures I said before? That was actually really helpful because you have to do that when you run for elected office. But we ran out for 4 seats, 16 people ran, and I came in 5th, which was runner-up. The first 4, the person up above me spent 5 times as much. And I take credit now. She's actually a US Congresswoman. Her name is Ayanna Pressley. I didn't brag about losing before, but now that she's gone up, I brag about it. Long story short, you keep trying, you keep going. And in 2011, a seat opened up, and I ran again, and I was elected to be the District 7 Boston City Councilor. And I had a really awesome opportunity to do that. I was responsible for a $1.5 billion budget as chair of education. I got to advance a great deal of policy to help folks in and around the community. And I would say this to you, if you don't see people in elected office that you agree with, then you need to look in the mirror and you need to run. And I'm gonna say this specifically to the women. We need you. We need you. We need to hear your voice. We need your perspective. And and the reason why I say that is because as a guy, when I went to run for office, I didn't even tell my family. I literally went and just signed the papers and I ran, right? And women, you guys oftentimes think about whether or not you're qualified. There'll be 10 things on the list and y'all will have 8 and y'all be worried about it. We'll have 2 and we will already have applied. So I think it's a really important piece that we have government that's representative, that hears us and sees us and has our voice that's out there. And I will fast forward. In 2017, I ran 2016, there was a ballot question to legalize adult use cannabis in the state of Massachusetts. One of the things you will also note oftentimes is that people in elected office are not profiles in courage. They don't always take risks. So when I signed on to help this initiative, I became the first elected official in the whole state of Massachusetts and all 351 cities and towns to actually sign on. And I did it not because I smoke a lot of weed. Now I consider that research and development now. But I did it because in the state of Massachusetts, they did a study, ACLU did, 2008 to 2014, 2008 being the year that possession of marijuana became legal, having an ounce or less became legal. From 2008 to 2014, if you were black, you had a 300% chance of being arrested for possession, which I just told you was legal. And you had a 700% higher chance of being arrested for distribution. I attended the University of New Hampshire, and I know that black people don't smoke it all, and we definitely don't sell it all. Interestingly, marijuana is something that's used across every race and gender at really the same rate. So in 2016, that became legal. 2017, I ran for mayor of the city of Boston. Was very happy to make it into the finals. I came in second. But when you come in second as an elected world, that means you need to get a job. And I had an amazing opportunity to actually break into the cannabis industry. And so today I own a company called Apex Noir. And we are going to, be the first 7-story full-service experiential cannabis retail company, cannabis and edible manufacturing company, and bar and lounge. So we got it all. It's almost like a cannabis mutual fund. And so we are expected to open our doors in July 2022. We actually, first year, believe that we can do 31 million in top line revenue and 10 million in EBITDA. So we, little bit about our financials. Interestingly, we are interesting because we have multiple businesses under one roof. We lucked out. We're in Faneuil Hall, which has 18 million unique visitors on an annual basis. And it's the 7th most visited destination in the world, which I had no idea because when you live in Boston, you kind of like, it costs $42 to park down there. So you kind of don't always go there. But we actually, again, most of our dollars will come from the retail side. We are also building a line of cannabis-infused products, which are edibles. So that's gummies, baked goods. We actually are partnering with a company to make ice cream, which will be infused ice cream, merchandise. And then we also have a bar and lounge that on the top floor, we will have actually it's already there. We have a retractable glass roof. So we will be able to have fun for years to come. In terms of our revenue assumptions, interestingly, the largest company in the state of Massachusetts is called Neta. They did $88 million in sales on Route 9 in Brookline. If anyone knows Boston or Brookline, that's like not a place that you just naturally has people. So, and interestingly, next to Neta is the safest daycare center in the whole state of Massachusetts. Because right next to Neta is a daycare center, and there are 5 police officers who stand outside all day. So their children are literally the safest in a state. And even in way out in Western Mass and Northampton, they're doing $43 million. A little bit about our company. As I noted, actually that's our building. If anyone knows Boston, the street to Faneuil Hall is 2 over, and there's a famous bar called the Black Rose. So if you're not 21, that's actually when you do become 21. That's a really cool place to go in Boston. But we are distinguishing ourselves in the marketplace, and it's actually interesting. I'm going to follow it with Nancy on the actual experience, because in the cannabis space, typically people want you to get in and get out and just keep it moving. And so we are actually building the first experiential component in the city of Boston. We will have multiple DJ booths and also art and experiential art on multiple floors. We also have a wellness program, membership program, so we can actually teach people about cannabis, because that's one of the other components people don't know. And for folks who are older than the people who go to school here, our choice was, my homeboy has some weed. We didn't have a menu that had 30 different things. We didn't have vape. We didn't have tinctures. We didn't have yummy edibles. And I know no one in this class knows anything about that. And this is the first time they're hearing about any of these, any of the things that I'm talking about. And so, we actually are distinguishing ourselves in a marketplace by the profitability, attractive economics, and in particular, the fact that we actually are one of the only 100% Black-owned businesses that are in downtown Boston. And sadly, but true, the liquor license that I purchased makes me out of the 1,200 liquor licenses that are in the city of Boston, I'm only the 10th Black person to own one. And then we've been out there kicking it, raising some dough. So we are close to where we need to be for opening. Nancy brought up how much dough you have to come out of pocket. It is very difficult, and in particular in the cannabis arena, it's about $1.5 to $2 million to open a retail store. The manufacturing side is actually a little bit more, and then the cultivation, meaning growing side, is actually about $350 per square foot. So you can imagine 10,000 square feet, 3.5 mil. So it's actually, and in terms of our value chain, a wholesale pound of marijuana in the state of Massachusetts is about $4,000. We retail that for $8,000, but they grow it for $1,000. So you can see if you're vertically integrated, which is what our plan is, to become vertically integrated, to do 2 more stores, but also in Raleigh do a cultivation and manufacturing facility that will allow us to cut our cost, and then have those, instead of buying it from everybody else, those dollars will flow back into our company. We have an amazing team, majority women, who are way smarter than me. Lisa actually runs a facility. She's been doing that for the past 5 years, so she's gonna come to run our facility. Jennifer owns 10 McDonald's. She went to HBS and went to Wellesley undergrad. And Blake is absolutely amazing. He is a cultivator, and he's 36, and he has been growing for the past 20 years. I'm gonna let y'all do math there, and we won't go any further on that one. And that's just a little bit about the business and industry. I would also just kind of close up. I personally believe your business has to have a purpose. And so the reason why we do this is, as a former elected official, I work every single day to make sure that we open the doors of economic opportunity for folks. In the city of Boston, the median net worth of a white family is $247,500. And the median net worth of a black family is $8. Those are not my numbers. That's the Boston Federal Reserve Bank's numbers. And this turns into life or death. So I represented a district in Roxbury, which is not too far from the Prudential. I had a little bit of the Prudential. It's 2 miles apart, but they're literally 2 different universes. In that 2-mile area, if you live in Back Bay, you live to 91.9. If you live in Roxbury, you live to 58.9, 33-year difference in life expectancy. So one of the things that we do with our company is we hold 20% of the jobs for individuals who who have a CORI, who have a criminal record. We pay people $21 an hour to start, and we give people opportunities that they traditionally wouldn't have. So I'm gonna stop and wrap up. Would love to answer any and all questions.
So you talked about always having a mentor and a mentee. So I have a couple of mentees through different programs on campus, but in general, they're pretty busy. And when I reach out to them to schedule a coffee date or whatever, it seems like more of a hassle to them than it is like they're excited. And I do want to be a good mentor. So I'm just curious if you have good advice on how to make that less of like another thing I have to do and more of an opportunity.
Yeah. And I guess I would say, and I know when we're in a college environment, you get assigned people. I'll be honest, that's kind of not the way you really want that those relationships should work. Nancy doesn't know it, but she's my new mentor. And so you want to have an affinity and a connection with that person. And I know you're fulfilling your duties. So this could be in a fraternal or a fraternity sorority, any of the organizations that you're in. And by the way, it doesn't have to be like the official title. As someone, what year are you? Sophomore, right? So there's people who are younger than you here in school. You're part of organizations that are like checking on those folks when you see somebody struggling and making those individual connections. I think those authentic connections are the most important versus like, yeah, they assigned me these 3 dudes and I gotta look out for them. So I think that's a really important component. And then the other piece is people who are really successful, like Nancy, part of what's in them is to lift people up, right? So if you reach out to, and you guys have way more ways to reach out to folks. We literally had, when I was here, the computers had green screens. Y'all don't know nothing about that. Y'all have all color, but literally it just only had green, right? So, but you guys have Twitter, Facebook, Insta. You have all of those ways to be able to connect with folks. And people who are really successful, in all honesty, they're gonna hit you back. And they wanna spread that love and their experience out there. So I think that's how you, and it's good that you're doing the check the box thing, but make sure that those relationships are authentic. Questions or?
I thought it was super cool that your facility would include like the kind of informational section about people that might not be as well read up on the topic. Have you ever thought about kind of bringing that idea of, bringing your knowledge of the industry into kind of a political sense for like states that may be kind of behind Massachusetts and other states that have legalized already? Like New Hampshire.
Yeah, well, so hold on. New Hampshire, y'all just like to do, what's up with live free or die? Y'all don't have weed here, right? What's up, right? And then when they decide to do weed, right? Y'all, I don't know if y'all have been following this, right? They want it to be state run. And I can tell you, that's like having a state run bakery. You probably aren't gonna want to go get the cupcakes there, right? And so you're right. So I think I am obviously willing, and I was part of an organization of local elected officials. Because the great part about, by the way, on the local elected official side, the kind of Republican, Democrat, we fix potholes, like parks, regulatory environments like that. So we actually agree on more stuff than all of that other stuff. So I think I would absolutely be willing. And one of the things that we also do in and around the state of Massachusetts is we try to educate folks. And I have also spoken on panels for other states that are coming online. Because again, as elected officials, this is kind of an uncomfortable topic. But at the state of Massachusetts, we did $1.2 billion in sales last year. We have a 20% tax. Yeah, by the way, I know that's a bad word up here because y'all don't know I know y'all don't know what taxes are up here, but yes, exactly, right. But one of the other components is this is also an industry that can create jobs. So we have nearly 10,000 people in the state of Massachusetts working. These are competitive jobs, and the people who run Blake, someone who's a chief grower, $150, $160. You're a general manager at a store, you make $120,000 a year. These aren't like chump change jobs. So it is a burgeoning industry, and I think states, you're right, should absolutely get on board. And I think New Hampshire's probably the only one in this corridor now in the Northeast that hasn't gone there. But also, as I said, is it there? Okay, cool. I want to make sure. I don't want to get people in trouble. But hey, man, the other component is there are a lot of young people in the state of New Hampshire. You guys have a voice. So folks are not, especially because y'all have like 400 people in your as state reps here. If you don't see or hear these issues being addressed, you need to run for office and address them in that way. Any other questions, comments, or?
So I have one question. I guess it's like ties into like getting the signatures and the credit cards and selling them, but how did you approach people with like, selling and?
Yeah, the selling thing. Yeah. Well, we should both. So the funniest thing for me, I'm an introvert, as you can see. So I guess, so I ran for student body president at UNH, and Nancy took a different approach. I leaned in. I'm a big black dude, and I stand out. And my name's Tito Jackson. Y'all don't know this, but Michael Jackson's brother is named Tito Jackson. So like that, and in my generation, that's like a cool little joke, haha, whatever, right? So I just literally leaned all the way into the thing that distinguished me. So I literally, I knocked on every single door on campus. That's how I won. And I think it's so important. My first boss, my first sales manager told me something that really sticks with me. He says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I would submit to you, I had a doctor, oh, this is taped. I had a doctor at Mass General Hospital who hated drug companies. And so I tried to get him to write my products for years. And he refused to see me. And one day, he made me cry because I got so angry at him, because I went to say something to him and he said, and you see I'm a big dude, right? So I really wanted to take his finger and like break it off. And so when I went to my car, like I literally was crying. But I said to myself, I'm gonna have a positive attitude regardless of how bad my day is when I'm around this dude. Two, the thing that actually made the breakthrough was you actually have to, people absolutely care about the personal connection that you have. In this case, by the way, we were selling something that goes into someone else's body that could kill somebody if you don't do it the right way. So one of the interesting things that happened, he wrote something in a newspaper. I cut it out and I brought it to him. I said, hey, this is really, really enlightening, whatever. So he said, come in my office. And you could hear like all the nurses and stuff listening because they thought I was getting yelled at. And he said, Tito, where are you from? I said, I'm from Roxbury. I said, but I was in the MECO program. He said, oh, really? I'm a MECO host family. I host 2 students at my house. But so 45 minutes later, again, everyone, you just hear people at the door like, oh my goodness, he's getting it. And he came out with his hand on my shoulder and said, hey, anytime he comes here, he can see me. So I would say that's, and in particular in a day and age when people not trying to dish y'all, but in 2012, it's a pivotal year, more data than voice went through at Verizon. What does that mean? Y'all don't talk. People don't talk to each other. And so having that connection and conversation, figuring out some connectivity is really important. Getting training, right? Nancy's been doing this for a long time, but she got training in how to do this. And as you could see, continued to get better and better so she could sell a company twice. The only other person I know who's ever done that is a guy named Wayne Chang, who was actually part of the initial Facebook team. So she's in that space. So that, and I stress to you, every single one of you who wants to be an entrepreneur, you have to sell. You have to participate in selling. It is not something that you can farm out. I'm the CEO and I just have someone who's the head of biz dev or whatever. You are ABC, always be closing. You're always gonna have to sell.
Time for one more.
I don't know if anybody else, but kind of like going off of that, like how do you know, or when is a good time to sell? Like how do you know that? Sorry, how do you know when a good time to sell is?
Sell a company or sell?
I guess a company.
You said sell a company? Yeah. Okay, well let's find, I haven't done it yet. So the person who's done the same one twice, let's talk to Nancy first, and then I'll tell you what I think.
I think it's all based on, your own trajectory, what you want to do, what your goals are, what you see happening in the market, what, really where you see the best benefit for the business. And it's hard to know. I think one of the things I thought when I sold the company is that it's kind of neat, then somebody else has to figure out what to do next. But that's not what happens. Then they just say, it's good you sold it, so what's going to happen next? You don't ever get done because you're always the person that's got to help figure out the next step. So for me, it was really a personal one that I was getting older and I wanted to make sure that I had time to live too beyond working so hard. And I figured, boy, if I could be done by the time I'm 62, that would be a good thing. So,
And I agree with that. You got to figure out why you got into it. And I have a friend who just retired as a state police officer in Massachusetts. We just had all this scandal, whatever. He's a really good guy, put himself physically on the line a lot. But he said, Tito, I retired. He's the same age as me. He's 47, 48. He said, I retired because I knew I did this to someday have or be able to purchase my life and my freedom. And so that's the one piece. I know a lot of us think about entrepreneurship just for the money. I would say that the reason why I do this is for the impact and the opportunity that if I have more resources, I knew what I was able to do as a city councilor when I made $87,500. I could probably project what I could do if I had several millions of dollars, and it would be being able to help more people and have more impact. And I think, and I heard it earlier, you guys, by the way, won't work for crappy companies. Y'all will leave. That's what we know about this younger generation, and I admire that about you guys and ladies. When we were coming out, some of the folks told us, "Hey, Tito, go get a good job at a company. You could stay there for 20 years." You guys change jobs on average 3 times in the first 5 years, and oftentimes now we'll actually go start your own company. The last thing I'll say is that dream that you have, that you think is crazy, is not crazy, because that dream would not have been put on your heart or mind if it wasn't for you. Each of us is sent here, and my theory on life, that we get a headstone when we're about to leave this thing. By the way, you don't get out of life alive. I got to let y'all know that. And you all get a headstone. And on the headstone, there's 3 important things. There's your name, the date you came here, and the date you leave. The only thing on the headstone, I submit to you, that really matters and that distinguishes you from anybody else is the dash. And it's a question about, what did you do? Who did you help? What's new, different, or better from the time that you were here? And you guys have an opportunity to make an amazing impact. And by the way, as noted before, y'all are smarter. Cause you need a 3.5 to get in here now. I wouldn't have been here. And you guys are, to me, you have more ingenuity than we had at the time. Go forward and do some awesome, amazing stuff. Take a baseball bat and make a huge, huge dent in the universe.
nice way to end.
Thank you.